From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Amarachi Ubani.
Tonight, President Muhammadu Buhari announces the dissolution of Adams Oshomole-led APC National Working Committee, names Yobe State Governor Mai Mala Buni interim national chairman of the party. All aspirants at ongoing People's Democratic Party primary step down for Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki as vote sorting continues at the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium in Benin City. And the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court writes judges advises against granting ex parte orders in political matters. And Egypt begins production of remdesivir and favipiravir, two drugs used in treating COVID-19 patients. Plus business news from Abuja, the FCT, and later from our studios in London.
On business news tonight, federal government to create and save about 5 million jobs in its post-COVID-19 economic recovery plan.
On sports news tonight, the World Football Governing Body FIFA announces Australia and New Zealand as host for the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup.
And from Abuja, Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 announces new timeline for reopening of airports to begin test run of flights on Saturday.
The National Working Committee of the All Progressives Congress has been dissolved. This follows a recommendation from President Muhammadu Buhari at an emergency National Executive Council meeting of the party held at the Presidential Villa in Abuja. The meeting also accepted the President's recommendation of suspension of all litigations involving party members while appointing a caretaker convention planning committee headed by Governor Mai Mala Buni of Yobe State. Our correspondent, Kayla Megwa, reports.
This meeting of the National Executive Council of the All Progressives Congress is called by the new acting national chairman of the party, Mr. Victor Giadom, who the presidency has ratified following a leadership crisis which rocked the ruling party for months.
The issues currently confronting our party at this time are such that should worry every party member. At the moment, our great party is faced with internal wranglings. There are ongoing litigations among some party members, and we cannot clearly ascertain the status of certain National Working Committee members.
President Muhammadu Buhari calls for an end to the crisis with the following resolutions.
A. Approving the immediate discontinuation of all pending litigations involving the party and its members. B. Ratifying the primary election conducted in Edo State. C. Dissolving the current National Working Committee. And D. Appointing caretaker extraordinary convention planning committee for the party.
The new caretaker committee, headed by the Yobe State Governor Mai Mala Buni, clarifies the duties of the committee, the legality of the extraordinary NEC meeting, and rumors of a plan to undermine the powers of one of the founding fathers of the party.
Nobody is targeted, and it is against nobody. So Aswaju is one of our leaders of this party. He's the founding father of this party. The other question is about the process of convening this NEC. And I want to tell you that it is a continuation. It is a continuation of last notice that was issued. And we said we have adjourned. Now That's the continuation of the last adjourned NEC meeting. Duration of office is for 6 months, within which we will do whatever we can as enshrined in our constitution to ensure that we strengthen the party and cap it up with the convention. Thank you.
Party members may now heave a sigh of relief. This leadership tussle within the All Progressives Congress threatened the existence and future of a party that many Nigerians do not believe will outlive the Buhari administration. Now perhaps the All Progressives Congress can focus on national issues and positioning itself for 2023. Kayla Megwa, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the registered support groups of the All Progressives Congress have backed the sacking of the national chairman of the party, Comrade Adams Oshiomhole. At a news briefing in Abuja before the announcement of the dissolution of the National Working Committee of the party, the group insisted that the former chairman failed to guide the party as a progressive one. The group expressed concerns about repositioning and rebuilding the party ahead of the next general elections.
We demand from the party leadership and the NEC that these prayers be critically discussed and implemented. 1, that the embattled and suspended national chairman of our party, APC, in line with the party constitution and the position of the law, be removed. If you haven't seen that he has failed to put the party in a true progressive status, as vested in him by Article 14 of our party constitution. And these are our observations. Number 1, failure to give account of leadership. 2, failure to provide good and effective leadership to the party. 3, failure to uphold the constitution of the party, among others. That the president and all respected leaders of the party should immediately intervene and save our party from the pending doom.
For some hours earlier today, the police took over the National Secretariat of the All Progressives Congress in Abuja. Policemen, however, vacated the party's secretariat moments after the National Executive Committee meeting presided over by the president announced the dissolution of the National Working Committee. The newly appointed chairman of the APC Caretaker and Convention Planning Committee, Mai Mala Buni, had a brief stopover at the Secretariat where he exchanged pleasantries with the acting national chairman, Mr. Victor Giadom, and members of staff.
The arrival of the newly appointed Caretaker and Convention Planning Committee of the All Progressives Congress calms the situation at the National Secretariat of the party as the police vacate the place. The chairman of the committee speaks on his mission to the party's secretariat.
I want to assure every APC member that we will do justice because we have a capable team. I'm a team player. I'm here to manage a crisis because if you don't manage crisis, crisis will manage you. So without justice, there will be no peace. So I'm ready to do justice to every APC member.
Shortly after the announcement of the dissolution of the Adams Oshiomhole-led National Working Committee, the Forum of Non-National Working Committee members of the party's National Executive Committee announces the dissolution of the forum's executive, replaced by a caretaker committee.
Acting Caretaker Committee Chairman led by Honorable Nelson Alapa and 11 others is hereby dissolved with immediate effect.
Begun. Well, voting has ended and sorting and vote counting begun at the People's Democratic Party primary for the Edo State governorship election at the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium in Benin City, the state capital. 2,200 statutory delegates were expected to choose the party's flag bearer. However, the coast seems clear for Governor Godwin Obaseki to fly the party's flag, as all three aspirants running against him have stepped down. Mr. Kenneth Imasagbon, Omorege Ogbede Ihama, and Gideon Ikine all announced their decision to step down as Governor Obaseki just before voting began.
Obaseki, 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 Obaseki.
Today, we shall be electing through the primary process a candidate for our great party that will be the flag bearer for the party that we have all labored for. I stand to support this measure, and I want to use this opportunity to ask that we all give our total support to the Executive Governor of Edo State. I feel your happiness. I feel your joy. Sacrifices must be made where and when necessary. History has been made in our party, and like the chairman, His Excellency Governor Bala of Bauchi State said, we have made our mistakes in the past, and it was imperative that some of us needed to take a stand to stop further mistakes. All of that has been resolved, and together we will work together to retain PDP in the government house.
All right, still on the vote sorting in Benin City, but ahead of the September 2020 governorship election in Edo State, the Young Progressives Party is considering pulling out of the race over what it describes as the high-level insecurity. Fielding questions from journalists in Abuja shortly after the 19th National Executive Committee meeting of the party, the national chairman, Mr. Bishop Amakiri, explains that the lives of YPP members are more important than an election threatened by insecurity. The party also appealed to President Buhari to urgently intervene in the rising cases of rape in the country.
For us, the lives of our people is more important to us, not just about the election. And you can see that at the moment, it seems like the index is growing every day. And we are still on the watch to know, because our primary is going to be on the 27th of this month, which is the last day that INEC scheduled for all political parties to hold their primaries. So we will watch between now and on 26th. If it looks like the coast is not clear, of course we'll pull out from the race, because it's not just about going into the election. It's about the well-being of our people.
Staying with elections, judges of the Federal High Court have been asked to stop granting ex parte injunction orders in political matters. The caution comes from the Chief Judge of the FHC, Justice John Soho, in a letter addressed to all judges of the court. Justice Soho notes that with the approaching elections in some states, party conventions and primaries have commenced, with attendant political maneuverings often culminating in the institution of cases in the courts. The FHC Chief Judge also advised the judges not to entertain matters of which the cause of action has arisen outside of their judicial divisions. The news of the death of former governor of Oyo State, Abiola Ajimobi, has been confirmed by the state government. The former governor is said to have died of COVID-19 related causes at the age of 70. Mr. Ajimobi died at a private hospital in Ikoyi, Lagos, where he was receiving treatment. He did not recover after falling into a coma. While he was at the intensive care unit of the hospital, a faction of the All Progressives Congress National Working Committee named him as the party's acting national chairman following the suspension of Comrade Adams Oshiomhole. Rumors of the death of the APC deputy national chairman for the Southwest had early emerged on June 18th, when several online and traditional media houses broke the story. However, His family members later came out to debunk the story, forcing retractions from those who reported it. Meanwhile, the Oyo State government has ordered that all flags in the state should fly at half-mast. President Buhari has condoled with the government and people of Oyo State over the death of the former governor Abiola Ajimobi. In a statement, the president's special advisor on media and publicity, Mr. Femi Adesina, quotes President Buhari as saying Senator Ajimobi's contributions to the development of the state and nation will always be remembered. The president also commiserates with the family of the former governor who served the country as a senator in 2003 before winning the governorship election in 2011. President Buhari believes he left the world at a crucial moment when the party and the country needed his counsel to heal and grow, noting his absence will sorely be felt by all associates, particularly in the APC. And our thoughts and prayers are with the Ajimobi family at the moment, but in part two, after the break, police released video showing details of how Nigerian Dubai-based suspected fraudster Raymond Igbalode, commonly known as Hush Puppy, was arrested. Join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live from Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. President Muhammadu Buhari announces dissolution of Adams Oshiomhole-led APC National Working Committee, names Yobe State Governor Mai Mala Buni interim national chairman of the party. All aspirants at the ongoing People's Democratic Party primaries stepped down for Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki as vote sorting continues at the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium in Benin City. Chief Judge of the Federal High Court's Rights Judges advises against granting ex parte orders in political matters. Tributes pour in as former Oyo State Governor Abiola Ajimobi dies at the age of 70 from COVID-19 related complications. And Egypt begins production of remdesivir and favipiravir, two drugs used in treating COVID-19 patients. Just a reminder, our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms on Apple TV, Android TV, Apple TV, Android TV, Fire TV, and Roku. We did say this earlier today. The police took over the National Secretariat of the All Progressives Congress in Abuja. They, however, vacated the party's secretariat moments later after the party's National Executive Committee meeting presided over by the President, Muhammadu Buhari, announced the dissolution of the National Working Committee. The newly appointed chairman of the APC Caretaker and Convention Planning Committee, Mai Mala Buni, had a brief stopover at the secretariat where he exchanged pleasantries with the acting national chairman, Mr. Victor Giadom, and members of staff.
The arrival of the newly appointed Caretaker and Convention Planning Committee of the All Progressives Congress calms the situation at the National Secretariat of the party as the police vacate the place. The chairman of the committee speaks on his mission to the party's secretariat.
I want to assure every APC member that we will do justice because we have a capable team. I am a team player. I'm here to manage a crisis because if you don't manage crisis, crisis will manage you. So without justice, there will be no peace. So I'm ready to do justice to every APC member.
Shortly after the announcement of the dissolution of the Adams-Oshiomhole-led National Working Committee, the Forum of Non-National Working Committee members of the party's National Executive Committee announces the dissolution of the forum's executive, replaced by a caretaker committee.
Acting Caretaker Committee Chairman led by Honorable Nelson Alapa and 11 others is hereby dissolved with immediate effect. In place, a 3-man member committee is hereby agreed to steer this forum in acting capacity pending when proper election will be held henceforth.
Earlier in the day, the National Secretary of the Ajimobi-led faction of the party stormed the Secretariat, only to be denied entrance by policemen. After a failed attempt to gain access to the party secretariat, Mr. Waziri Bulama speaks to journalists on the action of the police.
The police informed us that they are investigating some information they got from some vital sources that there may be threat to peace around the secretariat.
Although the Oshiomhole-led National Working Committee of the APC has been sacked, the task ahead of the caretaker committee is to conduct a ranker-free national convention within the next 6 months.
The Nigeria Governors Forum has held its 11th teleconference deliberating largely on the health sector. Having been briefed about the impact of COVID-19, the forum's intervention in the doctors' strike, the additional $750 million World Bank financing, among others, the forum agreed to review the concerns of the resident doctors and interface with the federal and state ministries of health. The Federal Ministry of Health and its agencies should engage with the National Assembly Health Committee and State Commissioners of Health to harmonize strategies that will facilitate the speedy release of funds for primary healthcare activities at the subnational level. The Minister of Health, Dr. Sage Hanire, who was also in attendance, assured the NGF of the availability of about 1 million personal protective equipment for healthcare workers in various facilities across the country. The Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 in Nigeria has announced a new timeline for the reopening of airports for local flights, with a test flight from Abuja to Lagos scheduled for Saturday, June 27th. At a news briefing by the task force, the Director General of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, Mr. Musa Nuhu, says most of the challenges delaying the reopening of the airports have been addressed.
Presidential Task Force on COVID-19.
It's the last news conference by the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 before it submits its findings and recommendations on the second phase of the ease of lockdown to President Buhari.
The chair of the PT.
The Minister of Aviation is represented at this briefing by the Director General of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority. He informs the gathering about a new timeline for the reopening of the airports for local flights.
I would like to report that we've had significant progress in the readiness of the industry to restart. And one of these things we're going to use to close some of the gaps is a dry run test of both Lagos and Abuja, and Abuja airports coming up this Saturday. After that, we will announce a date of restart shortly, sometime next week.
The Secretary to the Government of the Federation again decries the lack of compliance with the safety protocols, saying the PTF will submit its report and recommendations to President Buhari during the weekend.
The Presidential Task Force also continued to assess the developments nationwide and found that non-compliance has been largely fueled by skepticism and ignorance about the disease. I wish to inform you that by the end of this week, the Presidential Task Force will be submitting a report containing our assessment and recommendations to Mr. President for his consideration.
Both the Director General of the NCDC and the National Coordinator of the PTF had this to say about the use of face shields instead of face masks, as well as the many conspiracy theories about COVID-19.
Face shields are great, but they should be used in addition to face masks. It's not sufficient to protect ourselves and the populations.
A reasonable number of people still believe it's a disease that affects other countries but not Nigeria. Well, I'm afraid we are all humans in Nigeria. There's nothing special about us that provides us with resistance against COVID-19.
Nigeria now has over 22,000 confirmed cases of COVID-19. As the country prepares for the third phase of the ease of lockdown, citizens can only wait and see what further directives the president will issue after receiving the report and recommendations of the task force this weekend.
Police authorities in the United Arab Emirates have released a video showing details of the arrest of Nigerian Dubai-based suspected fraudster Raymond Igbalode, popularly known as Hush Puppy. The suspect was arrested earlier this month by the FBI at his home in Dubai. The new video reveals how the suspect was apprehended alongside 12 other syndicates. Police authorities also revealed that they hack corporate emails and clone websites to redirect payments to their own accounts. They confirmed that about 1.6 billion dirhams were stolen by them. They had over 1.9 million victims, over 25 million dirhams worth of cars, and 150 million dirhams worth of items. The FBI said the successful raid resulted in the confiscation of incriminating documents pertaining to a well-planned international fraud worth 168 billion naira. Back home, 6 persons, including a policeman, have reportedly been killed and 5 others injured as bandits attacked 2 communities in Dam Musa local government area of Katsina State. Residents identify the 2 communities attacked as Kanakolere and Kanawa villages. Among those injured in the early morning attack are 2 pregnant women. The bandits, numbering over 100, reportedly stormed the 2 villages on foot around 2 a.m., shooting sporadically before rustling livestock and stealing food items. The spokesperson for the Katsina Police Command, SP Gambo Issa, confirmed the incident, saying the slain policeman was killed when a police team drafted to repel the bandits ran into an ambush. When the News at 10 returns, a federal government to create and save about 5 million jobs in its post-COVID-19 economic recovery plan. That's on Business News. You join us again. Welcome back to the News at 10. I'm going to toss it over now to Linda Akigbe in Abuja, who has more on the News at 10. Hi, Linda.
Hello, Amarachi. Now we begin with the National Assembly. The House of Representatives Committee on Insurance has frowned at the lack of data and life insurance for public workers, especially those in the health sector. Lawmakers say they are worried that claims are not paid by insurance companies to families of deceased workers many years after their death. This is a position they took at a meeting with health professionals in Abuja. Our correspondent Terry Kumi reports.
The issue of data collection for insurance in Nigeria is a recurring line of conversation for the House of Representatives Committee on Insurance. This extends to the meeting with the Nigerian Medical Association and National Association of Resident Doctors, who recently embarked on a strike over lack of life insurance for their members. The revelations are alarming.
To start with, we don't even have next of kin registered. We have not been enrolled, which is in breach of Section 57 of Insurance Act 2003, which specifies that no policy on insurance shall be issued without the name and other details of persons to be insured.
You are saying clearly that no one has ever approached you or your group? There is no data collected from you at all?
Nobody has collected any data from
Okay.
The health professionals say the bulk of the responsibility to gather data for health workers lies with the Ministry of Health, which is not living up to expectation.
I thought that in normal places, such things should not even be asked for. We know we have the right, but we cannot push into the Ministry of Health. It's something that they should own up, without any pressure.
The lawmakers are also upset that insurance companies are working blindly.
Somebody saying that he is either a broker or an insurance company. To who? To the ministry? Is it the ministry? Is it the building that you're protecting? You're trying to protect the individual, which means you must have each and every individual data.
If we are to be insured, the insurance must cover and must be seen to be delivered to the members of those who love their loved ones. For example, late Dr. Adedoba has sacrificed her life for this country. And if we cannot do anything much to remember those kind of heroes that left us here to continue the battle from where they stopped, we must be able to do something to their families.
The problem of insurance cover for public workers is a major issue which may have been ignored for so long, despite the existence of the Pension Act, which gives legal backing. Many families of deceased public servants say they are yet to receive their benefits. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Meanwhile, the ad hoc committee of the House of Representatives investigating the non-implementation of the pay-as-you-go tariff plan by MultiChoice is insisting there is no going back. At a meeting with the Director General of the Nigerian Broadcasting Commission, lawmakers say enough is enough. They insist Nigeria is a huge market for MultiChoice and as such must enjoy the service being enjoyed by other countries where MultiChoice operates. On his part, the NBC Director General assures lawmakers that the process to ensure that pay-as-you-go tariff plan will be speedily pursued and implemented.
We have already taken a decision that pay-as-you-go is not going back. That's the decision we have taken. We will call you to rub minds with you so that you can tell us what it takes. Nigerians have spoken to us. Ever since this committee was set up, we have received a lot of memos, calls everywhere. And what the challenge they threw at us is that no matter what it takes, that they need pay-as-you-go. So I want you to have it at the back of your mind that we are not here to exercise academic this thing. It is pay-as-you-go. That's the duty that we owe the people that we are representing. So don't think that, when you told us about the issue of electronic, the bottlenecks around it, that we will be patient to wait until that time. You need to find a temporary solution at the moment, which is to say, okay, you liaise with these people, the Customers Protection Agency, and then sit with these service providers and negotiate the rates. The rate which the content arrive in Nigeria, negotiate it properly. So have it at the back of your mind that pay as you go for Nigerians is not going back. It's a project.
The Nigerian Customs Service says it has generated 573 billion naira between January and May this year from a total targeted revenue of 957 billion naira for the 2020 fiscal year. This is coming from the Deputy Comptroller General of Customs, Sanusi Umar, during an interactive session with the Senate Committee on Customs. He says the agency was able to meet more than half of its target revenue for 2020 because of its efforts to block leakages.
But the actual impact of COVID-19 will be sometimes in June and July. But we don't expect that to happen, in as much as we are trying to do our best to mop up and to block all avenues of revenue leakages. But for now, I believe if the CG were here, he will appreciate it if we still maintain the new figure that you gave us and see what happened between July and August.
But the chairman of the Customs Committee, Senator Francis Ali Mihena, is accusing the agency of not reflecting its operation surpluses in the reports before the committee. And that's all from Abuja. Back to you, Amaraji.
Thanks a lot, Linda. Now, 167 Nigerians stranded in South Africa by the coronavirus lockdown have arrived home on a flight from Johannesburg. Their arrival was announced by the chairman of the Nigerian Diaspora Commission, Mrs. Abike Dabiri-Iriwa. The 167 evacuees all tested negative before being evacuated. They will now proceed on 14-day self-isolation as mandated by the NCDC, the Ministry of Health and the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19. Business News is next. Here's Anne Mabudu.
Thank you, Amarachi. Hello and welcome to Business News. The federal government says it will create no fewer than 5 million jobs from its post-COVID-19 economic recovery plan. According to the Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Richard Adebayo, plans are ongoing to save about 1.4 million jobs in Nigeria, with 40% of them in female-owned MSMEs and 10% in businesses belonging to people with special needs. The minister also says the move is part of his ministry's input in playing a leading role in the federal government's delivery of real sector interventions of its economic sustainability plan in the wake of the global pandemic. He adds that the plan is to achieve the feat through the MSME Survival Fund, the Guaranteed Offtake Stimulus Scheme, and the credit support to MSMEs and priority sectors. Meanwhile, the collapse in oil prices coupled with the COVID-19 pandemic may plunge Nigeria's economy into the worst recession in 40 years. And that's according to latest report by the World Bank. That report estimates that the country's GDP is likely to contract between 3.2% and 7.2% this year, while 5 million people, and that's about 42.5% of its population, particularly women, could be driven into poverty. However, the World Bank reports that while the long-term economic impact of the global pandemic is uncertain, the effectiveness of government response will determine the speed, the quality and sustainability of Nigeria's economic recovery. A total of 17 banks have submitted requests to restructure over 32,000 loans for businesses and individuals, representing 33% of loans after running into repayment problems due to the coronavirus pandemic. This follows a move by the Apex Bank to allow lenders to give customers more time to repay loans and create a fund to combat the impact of the pandemic, which has now triggered a crash in oil price and the volatile economy. According to the member of the Central Bank Monetary Policy Committee, Aisha Ahmed, majority of the loans to be restructured are within the manufacturing and general commerce sectors. Ms. Ahmed also says the results from ongoing impact assessment of COVID-19 effects on impairment by banks shows that the total loans grew from 3 trillion naira to about 18.6 trillion naira over the last year. The local equities market has recorded its 6th consecutive loss today as weak sentiments caused the all-share index and caused low trading activities, dipping the ASI to 0.12%. But for details on this, Chimezie Obiwago will tell us more.
Thank you and welcome to the Stock Market Report. Lackluster. That's one word to describe today's market activities. It wasn't encouraging at all. Most of the sectors were unchained except the banking counter, and that's owing to the losses by the Tier 1 lenders, Zenith Bank and FBNH. For those that lost, the losses were marginal. 8 stocks declined, 9 posted gains, while others were unchained. Even the gainers were almost non-existent, as only 1 stock rose above 10 kobo, and that's Nemet Pharmaceuticals. Look at the activity chart. Volume and value were nothing to write home about. And so, when the market closed, the overall market index fell 0.12%, with MTN Nigeria as a major contributor to that decline. Well, what we saw in the market today was expected, particularly with the latest gloomy forecast by the IMF for the economy. For now, there is no catalyst to spur investors' appetite for equities, and traders say, except out of the blues, something happens tomorrow to change the narrative. The week will still end in the red. And that was the stock market report. I'm Chimezie Obi Iwagu.
Thank you, Chimezie. Our fingers are still crossed for a better day tomorrow. Meanwhile, U.S. stocks have fallen sharply also, as increasing number of newly confirmed coronavirus cases dampened expectations on an economic recovery. Let's see the closing numbers for today. And that's Business News tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. It's back to you, Amarachi.
Thanks a lot, Anne. Still ahead on the news at 10, Egypt begins production of remdesivir and favipiravir, 2 drugs used in treatment of COVID-19 patients. Plus, more stories from our London studio and around the world in 5. Stay with us. Welcome back. Egypt pharmaceutical Ava Pharma says it has begun producing remdesivir and favipiravir, 2 drugs used in the treatment of patients with COVID-19. Remdesivir is indicated for moderate to severe cases of COVID-19 for patients in intensive care who require oxygen, while favipiravir is indicated for mild to moderate cases. Here's Simon Pusey with more international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. UK ministers are finalising details of travel corridors, so some arrivals into Britain will not need to quarantine. Most of Western Europe is due to be on an initial list of exempt countries. If implemented, it's hoped the plans will boost tourism to the country at a time when the hospitality industry has been particularly hard hit. The UK is among a number of European provinces easing lockdown restrictions. This is despite Europe seeing a rise in weekly cases for the first time in months last week. That's according to the World Health Organization. Meanwhile, Australia's second most populous state has deployed ambulances and mobile test centres in a massive coronavirus testing effort as the country recorded the biggest daily rise in cases in 2 months. In the US, New York, New Jersey and Connecticut have asked people arriving from 9 other US states to quarantine for 14 days. Meanwhile, countries in Europe have continued to ease lockdown measures, with Paris reopening the Eiffel Tower more than 3 months after France went into lockdown. Australia's Qantas airline has announced it will cut 6,000 jobs as part of its plans to survive the COVID-19 pandemic. Along with other airlines around the world, Qantas is battling against a huge drop in demand after countries, including Australia, closed their borders to try and contain the spread of the virus. The recent cuts equate to about 1/5 of the airline's workforce prior to the crisis.
But the collapse of billions of dollars in revenue leaves us with little choice if we are to save as many jobs as possible longer term. Many of the 6,000 job losses we've announced today are people who have spent decades here. They're people we know personally. They are people that we know for a long time.
Russians have begun voting on constitutional reforms that could allow President Vladimir Putin to serve another 2 terms in office. The official vote is scheduled for the 1st of July, but authorities have said they were opening polling stations a week early to stop overcrowding amid the pandemic. Opposition activist Alexei Navalny has said the changes will allow Putin to be president for life, but Putin has said they will ensure Russia's stability. The 3 men arrested after the killing of Ahmed Arbery, a young black jogger in the southern United States, have been formally indicted on murder charges. Arbery was shot dead on the 23rd of February while running in a residential area in Brunswick in Georgia. For more than 2 months, local police did not make any arrests. It was only when a video of the killing went viral on social media at the beginning of May that the investigation began. The United Nations has urged Israel to abandon plans to annex settlements in the occupied West Bank, warning that it threatened prospects for peace with the Palestinians. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's cabinet is preparing to start discussions on the annexation of the West Bank on the 1st of July. Palestinians and most world powers oppose this annexation plan. They also reject a peace proposal unveiled in January by US President Donald Trump, in which the US would recognize Jewish settlements as part of Israel. Nearly 100 Rohingya refugees have been rescued after being stranded in a boat off the Indonesian coast. Police have said that the vessel found by fishermen was carrying around 94 foreign nationals, including 15 men, 49 women and 30 children. Rohingya have made dangerous journeys to Malaysia, Thailand and Indonesia for years, fleeing Myanmar or poverty in refugee camps in Bangladesh. Meanwhile, Spanish police have released footage of 6 migrants found in a truck's scrap metal cargo in the port of Melilla, one of Spain's North African enclaves. The migrants, 2 of which are believed to be underage, were trying to get to mainland Spain. They were found when using a device that detects heartbeats. Every year, thousands of migrants try to reach Spain illegally by land and sea. Over 7,700 irregular migrants entered Spain up to the 15th of June 2020. That's according to data by Spain's Interior Ministry. South Africa's Finance Minister, Tito Mboweni, has announced that the country's budget deficit in the next year will be the highest in the post-apartheid era. In his speech, Mboweni compared debts in Africa's most advanced economy to a hippopotamus eating the younger generation's inheritance. South Africa was already in recession before the imposition of one of the world's strictest lockdowns, which has impacted production across key sectors such as mining and retail. And finally, after the birth of a giant panda cub in the Netherlands, Chinese President Xi Jinping and his wife Peng Liyuan exchanged congratulatory messages with the Dutch King Willem Alexander and Queen Maxima. The Chinese couple said that the cub is a beautiful fruit of the China-Dutch friendship and an important achievement in bilateral cooperation in biodiversity conservation. They also said that since the onset of COVID-19, both countries have helped each other out a lot. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon. Let's join Jeffrey Ozono now for sports news.
Thanks, Amarachi. Let's begin with some good news for the Reds, as Liverpool's 30-year title drought has ended as they were confirmed as Premier League champions, courtesy of Manchester City's 2-1 loss at Chelsea. The result at Stamford Bridge means Liverpool have unassailable 23 points lead over Manchester City with 7 games left. Liverpool's title success moves them second in all-time list with 19, one behind arch-rivals Manchester United. Now, it's a different story for Watford, as their hopes of survival has been dealt a huge blow as they lost a hard-fought contest at Burnley. Elsewhere, a dreadful error from Southampton goalkeeper Alex McCarthy helped Arsenal achieve their first win since the return of the Premier League in an entertaining game at St Mary's. It was a timely boost for the Gunners, who have struggled with injuries and form since the restart, losing their 2 games prior to this. Now, World Football Governing Body FIFA has named Australia and New Zealand as hosts for the 2023 Women's World Cup after a vote by its council today. The joint bid of Australia and New Zealand edged the rival bid from Colombia to host the tournament, which has been expanded to 32 teams. Brazil and Japan had earlier withdrew their bids, citing financial challenges owing to COVID-19 pandemic.
I can announce the host country of the FIFA Women's World Cup 2023, which will be Australia, New Zealand. Congratulations, and thank you very much.
Meanwhile, FIFA has announced that it had agreed a $1.5 billion relief plan to help deal with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the global game. The plans allows for a universal solidarity grant of $1 million to all national associations, with additional $500,000 specifically for women's football. Each regional confederation will receive a grant of $2 million. 2017 Afro basketball winner Ndidi Madu believes the current African champions, the Tigers, can beat the United States of America at next year's Olympics in Tokyo. In an interview with Channels Television via Instagram Live, Madu, who is now an assistant coach of the team, says the ladies are evolving and can beat and upset any team in the world. At the Olympic qualifying tournament in February this year, the U.S. beat them 76-71, and Coach Madu is confident the story will change when they meet again. The National Basketball Association has announced that 3 players have tested positive for COVID-19. The players are Sacramento Kings pair of Jabari Parker and Alex Len and Indiana Pacers Malcolm Brogdon. The NBA said the players have gone into self-isolation and are expected to recover in time for the resumption of the league next month. And that's it on sports. It's back to you, Amarachi.
Thanks, Jeff. And the main news again. President Muhammadu Buhari announced the dissolution of the Adams Oshiomhole-led APC National Working Committee and named Yobe State Governor Maimela Buni interim national chairman of the party. Also, all aspirants of ongoing People's Democratic Party stepped down for Edo State Governor Godwin Obaseki as vote sorting continues at the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium in Benin City. And we understand the sorting has ended and the results will be announced any moment now. Finally, tributes poured in for former Oyo State Governor Abiola Ajimobi, who died at the age of 70 from COVID-19 related complications. And as we end the news at 10, we'll be taking you live to the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium in Benin City for the ongoing final round of the PDP governorship rally and the primary going on in that state. But this will only be for our viewers on the DSTV service. Regular programming continues for our viewers on other platforms.